morning, guys. My name is Neil Evans, head football coach at Harding Academy. In a minute, you'll see the other two guys who are joining me, but I've got Bronson Smith, our defensive coordinator, with us, and as well as Will Francis, our offensive coordinator. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to just kind of present a couple things just program-wide regarding Harding Academy and kind of what's been done before we got here, and the things we not only tried to continue but make better since having been here. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our defense, and then I'm going to let Coach Will Francis wrap it up by talking about quarterback play at Harding Academy, something that we take a lot of pride in, a position that's been very good to us here recently. And so just asked him to kind of share some things about that. I'm labeling this as pieces of the team. And so as you'll see as we kind of work through these slides, that there's just different elements. So the first thing I think is worth mentioning is what's always been. And one of those is a guy named Bill Barden. Our field house is named after Bill Barden. And Coach B, as he's known around here, is one of the finest people I've ever met in my life. And he has laid the foundation at Harding Academy for how to treat people and how to treat players. And that is something that you can feel, when you step into the football program at Harding Academy, there is a standard with which you go about treating people, not just within your program, but attempting to treat people outside the program as well. And so we're very fortunate to still have Coach B very close to the program. I've been fortunate enough in my 5 years here to develop enough of a relationship to call him my friend, and he means a great deal to me. Harding Academy, we have great tradition, and that first slide showed a number of state championships and conference championships that weren't shown on that slide. And so long before even when I was born, Harding Academy has taken football very serious and has held the program and the players to a high standard, and I am certainly the benefactor of being a part of those. We have a culture of winning. That sounds a little bit cliche when you first hear it, but those of you that are around know that cliches are in fact somewhat true. And so there's a lot of different elements that make that up, and I'll allude to some of them here in just a moment. We have intelligent players, more years than not, especially once we get into the playoffs. We're not the most athletic team. Certainly the past 2 years have been two of the more talented years in Harding Academy history. But year in and year out, we have very solid players, but we're not always the most athletic team. And the intelligence of our players helps close that gap a little bit. We also have committed players, and we have very few college caliber players, certainly high caliber college players. And what that does is that when you have a team made up of guys who are not concerned about the next level, it makes the time that they're with us here very, very special, because they are kind of where their feet are. And I think that's very important, because they're not thinking about the next step. They're not worried about their Twitter. They're not worried about what offer they're going to get or who came by. Their mind is not wrapped up in that, and they're not wasting energy on that. And so that allows for a lot of unique things to happen in the work level and the workload, and even the work ethic of our players to be very, very high, because we feel like they're not giving so much energy to whatever's next, that they can be where their feet are. It matters to our school. K3 all the way through 12th grade attends pep rallies, and I know that's not unique to Harding Academy, but it is a piece of it. Even though other programs have that and other small schools have it, it is something that's unique to Harding Academy, because so many of our students start in K3 here and come all the way through. And so, our young girls picture being a cheerleader one day, or they picture being in the band one day, or our young men picture being a football player. And so it creates an incredible amount of school spirit, certainly with football. But we have so much school spirit within all those other supporting casts that kind of comprise a very unique subculture, even within our school. And then lastly, our players have a strong desire to uphold the standard. They know what they represent. They know who they represent. They know who's come before them, and they feel the pressure to uphold not just the level of play, but the methods and the philosophies behind how those great things and those great teams achieved those things. They know what it took, and they do not want to let that down. Second slide here is what we're calling pieces of the team, following kind of the same line of thinking. And this one is what we've tried to do since having been here, things we've tried to create or tweak or observed happening since we've been here that maybe as a byproduct of something that we've done intentionally. Strength and conditioning format would be the biggest one. And I put on their student schedules, every male athlete in our school is either lifting weights first period or the last period of the day. So whether they're in season or out of season, our strength and conditioning program is touching every single male athlete in our school. And then we have some philosophical things that we very strongly believe in that regard. I'm not going to get into those at the moment. I don't want to have a debate on that because there's lots of ways to do those things, and so I certainly don't want to insult anyone else's approach. But we feel very strongly about those things. If someone wanted to know, I'd be more than happy to share those one-on-one. I think this next one is really important. It's a commitment to our base scheme offensively and defensively. And, when I began coaching and I figured out that I was going to end up in high school football, I can remember going to a clinic my first year and also just kind of hearing, kind of on the peripheral, just hearing different things about, you've got to be able to adapt your scheme to fit your personnel. And I am not in any way saying that is incorrect, but that never resonated with me. And the reason it never resonated with me is because if I was continuously changing who I was, then I would never know who I actually was. So if year to year I look at it and I say, well, we don't have the athletes to run this on either side of the ball, and I make some sort of wholesale change within the scheme, I am 3 to 4 years from figuring out who I am in that scheme. And then every year that's going to change. So even if I can sustain it for 3 years, if my philosophy is I'm going to change every single time my team changes personnel, then I'll never figure out who I am. I'll never be able to get it entrenched into the lower levels. And so I don't have a system of teaching. And so my goal is from the time a kid enters the 7th grade till he enters the 12th grade, there is a base on both sides of the ball that hopefully will not change. Yeah, it's going to expand. Yeah, it may morph, but the base is the base, and we're not going to change that. Again, I'm not saying that's right, but that's something that I feel very, very strongly about, and I think it has paid off with us because we've been kind of stubborn on that and forced our way into saying we're going to stick with this, and that's something I'm passionate about, and something that at this time I don't plan on changing. And then I put on there, we've been 2 platoon the last 3 years, and we've done it at a small school, which is unique. And I could talk to you more about that one-on-one some other time. It's not what I'm here to talk about, but what that has done is that has allowed our scheme to expand immensely, just because of the volume for our players as well as the volume for our coaches has gone down. Therefore, the available mental capacity, both of those, has grown. I said this not long ago to another staff. We have a very unique situation within our coaching staff, and I think there are guys coaching at all levels all over the country that would love to have the relationships and the trust that our staff has amongst each other, and it makes coming to work enjoyable. It doesn't mean that it's always easy. Certainly not. You guys aren't stupid. You know that it's not always easy, but it makes it something that is a security blanket for all of us, to know that even on my worst days, somebody else is going to pull me up. or if I'm at my best and somebody else is having one of their not so great days, I'm going to pull that person up. And there is a trust within our staff, and a desire to do a really good job. And I know that sounds like just words, but I've been on a number of other staffs, and there's nothing like what we have here at Harding Academy right now. Our coach's office is almost a sacred place, and you can sit there and say, well, you guys have had success here recently. No, you're not had any adversity, but I know the fabric of the guys that are in my office with me, and I know that they're a lot more mentally tough and committed to what we're trying to do, and committed to upholding the standard here that exceeds just us having success here recently. Another thing, we inherited this, and we've continued to try to keep it going, and even try to make it a little bit better. But we take a father-son retreat, and I know that's nothing unique to just Harding Academy, but it is something that we do that we feel that it is a very positive thing for our team and our players, and certainly our coaches. And we get feedback all the time from dads or sons that have been on those, that years after have come back and said something positively about that weekend. So it's very fulfilling to hear those things, and to think that we're doing something beyond just the immediate practice field and game field. Okay, now I want to transition into kind of just mentioning a few things about our defense and where it came from, and kind of what we believe. And I'm going to go through a couple slides. I'll turn it over to Coach Smith. But so we've been 4-2-5 since I've been at Harding Academy. I spent 1 year in the 4-3, my very first year coaching. I take that back. I spent 2 years in the 4-3. My first year as an assistant, my first year as a head coach, we were a 4-3, two-read defense. And if you were going to line up in something that was pretty balanced and simple, I felt like the defense was great. But any kind of, you gave us a tight end set, you gave us trips into the boundary, a number of problematic formations that we would get. I began to notice that our defense lacked flexibility. And so I'm very fortunate to have a dear friend and a guy named Cam Clark. And Cam's been a lot of different places. He's been at Arkansas State, he's been at Auburn, he's been at Lamar. Now he's the defensive coordinator at Western Illinois. And in December of 2011, that was when Hugh Freeze had taken the Ole Miss job, and Gus Malzahn was getting hired at Arkansas State. Cam was at Arkansas State with Hugh, and in that transition, there was essentially a 3-week window where Cam didn't know, am I going to Ole Miss with Hugh, or can I stay with Gus? What's going on? His wife's got a teaching job there in Jonesboro, and so a lot of stuff going on. So he came down and spent a week with our staff in Alabama, and I said, Cam, I want to learn it all. And so the bell would ring, school would get out, and our defensive staff would meet till 10 o'clock at night every night for 5 days straight. And of course, he's not doing anything, so he's up at the office with me that whole time. He's staying at my house. I mean, I'm getting it all. Well, I found out through all of that that it was important for me to begin to align myself with a system. And I remember I'm still a young coach in a lot of people's eyes, but I was a really young coach at one time. And I can remember, pulling stuff from the internet and finding articles and feeling like everything had merit and everything was valid. And I guess in a sense it is. But I began to ask Cam, I'm like, well, they call it this way, or they check it this way, or they teach their safety to do this, or to read this, or to move like this post snap, all those things. And he said, yes, they do. Does that fit what you are doing? And I thought, how does it not fit? I didn't understand the question. I understand it now. Well, that began so Cam leaves, goes to Auburn. Those questions start surfacing when he gets to Auburn. And at that time, Ellis Johnson is the defensive coordinator at Auburn. So Dave Womack, okay, so I've kind of got a blend. So Dave Womack began. I think he kind of really got rolling, made a name for himself at Georgia Tech. Well, anyways, he's at Arkansas State when Hugh Freeze is there, and then he goes to Ole Miss with Hugh. So the first thing I learned is all the Dave Womack stuff. And then when Cam goes to Auburn, Ellis Johnson, who really made a name for himself at South Carolina, has a little bit of a different flair to the same defense. And so I get a mixture of both of those. And in all of that, I come out with an alignment and kind of an allegiance to a system of defense. And now what it does is it allows it to expand, it allows it to grow, and it allows it to be adjustable. Because maybe the 4-2-5 is not the best thing in the world to tight end trips. You can just throw out any formation. Well, I refuse to become a different defense because that formation is problematic. So I am going to figure out ways to make the defense adaptable to what we're seeing rather than an overhaul. And I think when you align yourself with a system, you give yourself a chance to do those things. Why the 4-2-5 from a schematic standpoint? Number one, this is kind of our philosophy as far as in the box. We're going to develop and coach defensive linemen. We're going to let linebackers play. And I feel very, very strongly that has held true my whole career, and especially since we've been here at Harding Academy. That's kind of what we've done. We've put guys with instincts at linebacker, and we put guys with a high motor with perhaps less instincts. We're going to rep our way into them being good defensive linemen. It's an easy defense for linebackers. I don't know what everybody else keys. I don't know what odd fronts do for sure, all the time, but you don't have to key guards. I think keying guards is one of the in all of football for high school, because most guards aren't very good. And so you get a very cloudy read, and as much ball control as we see, so much play action, looks just like run if I'm keying the guard. And so it's just a very cloudy read. Our linebackers don't have to get on and off of blocks. It's just, we don't have to spend a lot of Indy time working on anchoring and shedding. And, I rarely see that show up. To me, my philosophy is if I'm out there constantly worried about taking on blocks, then that becomes the objective rather than making tackles. That's not to say that getting on and off of getting blocked and getting off a block is not important. But if we're really, really good at taking on blocks and then we can't make a tackle, then we're no good. We're just creating block destruction teach tape, and we're getting people just running for thousands of yards on us. So it's just my philosophy. And I don't know. I think it's this way across any defense. You have to be a very football savvy person to be a good linebacker. I do not believe in overcoaching linebackers in terms of their Indy. I don't ever see stepping over bags showing up. I don't ever see anchor shed showing up. We 2 years ago we played 15 games. You go through with a fine tooth comb and look at every clip we've got. There may be 2 anchor sheds, but you go watch somebody that has an hour of Indy, they're anchor shedding for an hour. Because there's really not much else to do, because linebacker requires savvy. It just does. Another reason for the 4-2-5 is the ability to play with smaller, more athletic linebackers if it's needed. Obviously, the bigger, the faster the linebacker, the better chance he has of being. But we feel like our defense doesn't require a bruiser at linebacker. Yes, we would love to have that. Yes, we're going to play that guy if we have him. But if we don't, we have ways of hiding that guy or protecting him and playing to his skill set. Another one is our fronts are easily adjustable. We can take away what an offense does best. We can move the front, not just post snap. We can move it pre-snap. And playing with 4 downs allows for a lot of multiplicity within our defensive line to really test an offensive line's rules, see how good they are in fact at those rules, and see if we can create confusion without having to have some sort of expensive pressure on the back end. Obviously we will blitz if it's needed, or we think that's what's best, but we certainly feel like we are at our best, just like anybody, when we can get pressure with our front or create confusion with our front to either let our back end hold up on pass or allow our linebackers to play remarkably fast to what they're keying and what they're seeing. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Bronson Smith, our defensive coordinator here, and he's just going to kind of briefly touch on the personnel requirements that we kind of look for position by position in our defense, and just kind of touch on some things that shows the versatility and kind of what we're looking for. So if you're interested in the 4-2-5, hopefully this will provide some insight into kind of what we've done and what's worked well for us.
So I've kind of broken this down into two different categories for each position. I think there are physical characteristics and kind of the mental makeup of each position that you have to have, or that we feel are important to our style of the 4-2-5, and then kind of some schematic ideals for each position based on kind of the calls that we like to make, the pressures we like to run, and typically the personnel that we have kind of guides our calls, and your opponent is going to dictate that to an extent. But we have some schematic ideals for each position. But I coach the D line, and I also take the linebackers with me some, especially the Mike, or as we call it, the monster. That's my position group. So that's kind of my key area. Coach Evans coaches the safeties, which is a really, really big deal in our defense, that they're getting coached individually. And then Coach Eric Wallace takes our corners, and as Coach Evans alluded to, we play one side of the ball, and that gives us some freedom, but that also means you got to kind of split up your staff, and it makes everybody better. It makes everybody have to be a better coach, and because that's your group, and that you're responsible for making sure they got their stuff together. But on the D line, we've started guys that weigh 165, 160 pounds. We could throw occasionally. We could throw some bigger guys down there on the interior, but at Harding Academy, it's just not a place where you're going to have a bunch of really big guys to put on the line and just kind of sit and anchor. So I know just from talking with some odd front defenses, they don't feel like they have enough lineman personnel at their school or whatever to be an even front defense, and I just don't believe that's a real thing. I mean, if you got big guys, you can sit and anchor a gap, and nobody's getting that gap. You're occupying two linemen, and they can't move you. Shoot you out, sit in that gap, let your linebackers play free. But if you got small guys, put them on the move, slant, twist, stunt, whatever you want to call it. Use pressures from the back end with your linebackers or safeties or whatever to get those guys on the move and get those linemen guessing and kind of unsure of where you're always going to be. I think when a lot of people think about an even front defense, they just think of a 1 and a 3 just sitting there and just ready for double teams to tee off on them and tackles just to demolish you. But we, partially some of that we play with a 2-eye instead of a 1. That kind of helps occupy that guard a little more, we feel like. But if we can keep those guys on the move, if we've got even if we're just a bad matchup that week, we got playing a big offensive line that's going to give us fits. If we just sit and anchor, we're going to put them on the move. Put them in some head-up alignments, slant them, and that way the lineman has to play a little bit slower. He can't just fire off on us. That kind of messes up his rules and his I guess how sure he is of what he's supposed to do on any given play, because he doesn't know where that guy's going to wind up. But you just got to adapt to what you have and align yourself, like Coach Evans said. You got to align yourself to your base, and then you can make adjustments based on the personnel you have within that base. But for us, our D line is kind of our high motor guys that they're they're kind of the renegades of our school as much as you can have a renegade at Harding Academy. I understand that's probably different everywhere else, but those guys they like to get after it. They're going to be pretty mean and relentless, and they're going to enjoy you. Your knees are killing you because they've been playing on your shins the whole night, or they're getting underneath your pads and they're dirty after, within the confines of the play. But those guys have got to have an attitude and kind of a bully mentality between the lines. But no, that doesn't necessarily have to dictate their behavior outside of the game or outside of the practice field. But ideally, our nose and our tackle are bigger than our defensive ends. We want our ends to be our ends to be faster, a little more athletic. A lot of offensive lines, the tackle is going to be the bigger guy, and we can kind of get some matchups in pass rush and slanting, especially when we're bringing pressure off the edge. We can kind of move that DN around, and even if we decide to drop one into coverage, that's kind of some upper level stuff. But us going one way allows us to kind of get into some of that and become more adaptable. But our field end is typically one of our best players on the D line, just simply because the offenses are going to run to the field. It doesn't matter if they know that, they all know that, but that they're going to run to grass, they're going to throw to space, they're going to sprint out to it, especially with a high school hash. It puts you over there, and there's not a lot of room to work with. There's not a lot of room to formation people into the boundary, which people like to do to a 4-2-5 defense, but there's just not a lot of grass to work with over there. Kind of moving on to our inside backers. So we play with a bigger body at the monster, or as we call it, the Mike, or we call it the monster. Most people refer to it the Mike, but that's our thicker body guy. He's got to be able to run enough to get to things out of the box, but he doesn't have to be just elite speed or anything like that. He's going to take on a lot of the fullback sniffer type guys. When teams like that pulling guards, wrapping up, they're going to run to the field. He's going to be on the field side every time, or at least the passing strength, and he's going to have to take on some linemen, but I'm going to do my best job with my D linemen, with my front and my movement of the front to keep those guys free. If I can occupy two linemen with one D lineman and let my linebackers run free and not have a gap, then that's what I'm going to do. Our stinger is our weak side backer. He's got to be a little more adaptable to coverages and alignment, but he's got to play with some radical effort because he's probably going to be a little bit undersized just due to the fact that he's going to have to be kind of flexible in what he is able to do, just because he's not protected to the field like the field side the monster is, or the Mike. He's not protected by that overhang, so he's kind of he's got to be a dude. He's got to have some football savvy and be able to play and have an understanding of space and where he needs to adjust his alignment. But the monster, the Mike, it's the easiest place to play in our defense. You're free most of the time, and he's got the freedom to give the tackle and his field side end a call to cancel both A and B gaps, and so that he feels like he can get out of the box, especially if he kind of has the awareness that the offense trying to use formations to displace our force player. Our stinger, he's like I said, he's got to be adjustable, but he's kind of got to have some savvy, but he's got to play like his hair's on fire. They all do. Moving on to our high safeties, our Rip and our Wolf. Our Rip is our free safety. He's got to be our fast. He doesn't have to be our fastest guy. He's got to be our most intelligent guy. He and the Bandit, who is our strong safety or our overhang, they kind of protect one another. We can highlight a Bandit or overhang to the field side or passing strength, we can highlight that guy, or we can kind of hide a guy there because we've got the rip over the top of him majority of the time. But he's got to be the smartest guy on the field. He's got to have an understanding of the whole defense. He's got to understand when I make a call and they shift or they change the formation and we can't run that call, that pressure anymore, that front anymore, whatever. He's got to know to check out of that, and he's got to have enough confidence in himself to make that call. And that's not something that is always, what they've got on the first day. That may be something that I have to stay on them about, or put them in situations where I may make them call the defense in the summer, or, sometimes in practice, just so that they have to talk and they have to be in charge of everything. But they've also got to have an understanding of everyone else on the defense and what their strengths are. I have honest conversations one-on-one with that guy of, okay, this player is good at this player's not good at this. And then he knows reasons why I put certain calls on to highlight a guy or to hide a guy. The Wolf is our weak side safety. He's got to be a little bit more athletic, or a lot more athletic than the Rip. Intelligence is important, but it's not just imperative. But he's got to also be able to run. He's got to be able to tackle in space, and he's got to be a little more dynamic than the Rip does. The Bandit, he can be kind of your undersized linebacker. He can be your corner, kind of a longer corner type body. There's different body styles and body types and kind of mental makeups. We're adjustable in that, and our coverages and how we align him. Just we try to, like I said, we can highlight him or we can hide him, but we're gonna use him on pressures. We're gonna use him in coverages, but we're gonna use him as our kind of our Swiss Army knife, for a lack of a better term. But like I said, the Rip has to be, the field general. He's got to know all those, the whole defense just as well as I do for that year. Know the personnel that are on the field. That's a huge thing for us. But our Bandit also is our force player to the field. He's got to understand how he does that, how he's a force player on his blitzes, or based on the formation that he's given. He's gonna follow the trips around most of the time, and he's got to understand if they're stacking or if they're trying to widen him out. He and the Rip have to work together to kind of make that stuff right, along with the Monster. Our corners, those are our, we have ideals obviously at those positions, but those don't have to be our best guys. If you put a guy out there that may be a height mismatch to the field or whatever, that's a long throw for a high school quarterback. We don't have to have the most gifted guys out there, because if we are playing man coverage or something where we don't have a safety over the top of that guy, where he's extremely vulnerable, then we're going to be sending 6, and if they can't get there before that quarterback gets the ball to maybe your mismatch out at receiver, and then that's on the D line, and whoever the other 2 guys are that we're sending, I'm gonna be mad at them for not protecting their teammate and not taking care of him. And that's that goes along with we gotta know our strengths and our weaknesses of our defense and the people that are out there, so that we can make the right calls, make everybody be successful, and make us successful as a team. But our field corner, he does get matched up in some man a good bit, but again, that's he's protected. The grass protects him, but he's also got help over the top in most of our coverages. Our boundary corner's got to be a little bit better of a player. Doesn't have to be just the best athlete on the field, but he does have to be a good player. Just because we're -1 over there, he is protected by the Wolf over the top of him, because we're going to stay in a 2-high shell at all times if possible. But he's got to be able to tackle in space. I'm going to turn it over now to our offensive coordinator. Let him talk about our quarterback play for just a few minutes. don't hesitate to reach out to any of us here. If you got any questions, you want to talk any more about anything we've discussed.
All right, I wanted to kind of piggyback along with what he was just talking about with what he's looking for in each position, and I'll spend a little bit more time on quarterback just because, like Coach Evans said, it is a position that has a lot of clout. It has a lot of focus from a standpoint of they're involved in just about every play and have a huge impact on the game. And it's a guy that you got to make sure you put a lot of investment in to try to get some in return. But I just want to go ahead and mention a couple points that we really try to emphasize what we're looking for in a quarterback when we're trying to select a quarterback, but then also things that we want to try to get better at and develop over time when they do become a quarterback. First thing there is, regardless of scheme, a passing threat and a running threat is very, very hard to defend. Most of the time, quarterbacks can do one or the other really, really well. But if you look at the trend in high school football, that's kind of trickled down from college football and even making its way to the NFL. The most successful teams have guys that can do both. And whether that's their ability to extend plays, whether that's getting them involved into the run game, whatever that may look like, the seems to be the best teams really have a guy who can throw it and have a guy who can run it. And that sounds very cliche, and all of you would say, yes, I would want a guy that could have a great arm and be a threat running. But even if you don't, even if a guy does struggle with one of those things, that's something that hopefully that you would want to work towards getting better at. And that'll lead me to the next point. I heard Lincoln Riley talk about this in one of his clinics, but one of the things he said was every quarterback drill must make the guy uncomfortable and put him on the move. He talks about how many times, high school and even middle school quarterbacks growing up, how they make stationary throws when they're warming up. All they're doing is just sitting there and throwing without being put on the move, without being put under any stress. We in the summers we do 7-on-7. We do a lot of things that are kind of standing still, stationary. Not making the guy uncomfortable. And how game-like is that? It's not. And so that's one of the things that we've really tried to emphasize, and the things that we've tried to do is try to put our quarterbacks in a lot of pressure situations, make him uncomfortable, put him on the move. In just about every quarterback drill that we do, the stationary drills are good. They're just that we work on them all the time. Another thing we try to emphasize is taking care of the football and not turning the ball over. I played college basketball, and one of the stats that I really like to look at is the assist to turnover ratio. It's very similar to kind of the touchdown to interception ratio, but it really shows how much a guy values the football. It also shows how kind of intelligent and how smart he is. And I really, that's one thing that we really try to emphasize is how much value you put on the football, how much you take care of it, and try not to turn it over one way or the other. Last 2 years, we've I think it's shown, and yes, we've had a great quarterback in Caden Sipe, but that was one of the things he did an unbelievable job of. He threw 59 touchdowns, 6 picks 2 years ago. This year we didn't play as many games. We had a very talented running back in Andrew Miller that we kind of leaned on him in the running game. He didn't get as many opportunities to throw it, but you still see kind of in those numbers for this past year with 32 and 5, just his value that he puts on the ball, and knowing each time that he could do something pretty special with it if we hung on to it. The last thing there, and this is kind of a topic of conversation that is disputed on there's a lot of things that go into it. And it's, again, something that is, yeah, of course you want a quarterback to be accurate, but it's something we've really tried to emphasize is completion percentage and accuracy, and giving our guys, easy throws and easy completions. That way, we can, they talk about completions equal yards, and yards, equal points, and points, equal wins, and wins, leads you to where you want to go. But that's, if you're not completing balls at a high percentage, you're probably not going to be very good. One of the things we've looked at the last several years, anytime we completed 70% or more of our passes, we played for state championships. And the years that we really struggled, that number has been quite low. Yes, there's lots of things that go into that. You got to have guys, receivers that aren't dropping footballs. You got to have receivers that are, getting open. You got to have a line to protect for you. But it is kind of, for us, it has been something that, especially the last 2 years, that again, we've really tried to hone in on and emphasize. And again, you look at the recent trend in college football. The last 2 national champion quarterbacks and Joe Burrow and Mac Jones have completed 75-76% of their passes, and again, trying to get the ball out quick, which is something we try to do. Then this last thing is another list of just characteristics of things that we try to help our quarterbacks kind of make a part of their life on and off the field. And I put a line in between really both of them, because I think they're divided for a reason. On the left, you have a quarterback that's unselfish, that's humble, that's coachable, that has a servant attitude, that's strong character, that's an encourager. What's really, really cool is those guys pictured right there on the screen embody that in an unbelievable way. Our quarterback on the right there this past year was Caden Sipe. You could find him taking equipment out to the field and off the field almost every day. I could coach him more hard than I could any other kid on our team, and have those hard conversations with him more so than I could with just about anybody else. You won't find another kid that is as successful as he has been, that is as unselfish and as humble as he is. On the other side of that equation, you want him to be assertive. You want him to be aggressive. There's times you want him to be vocal. You obviously want him to be a tough and a leader, a guy that you can look to in tough moments. And when you're in a tough playoff game on the road, you want a guy that you can look to and that can make big plays in big moments, and that can make great decisions on and off the field. And I put that line there because I think a lot of times, you think of this, you want a quarterback to be on one side unselfish, putting his teammates first, encouraging, but then you also want a dude back there that will be tough and be vocal and get after people when they need it. And how do you mesh really the two of those things together is really, really difficult. A lot of times you got a guy who maybe is quiet, he's not very tough. He may be skilled, but he doesn't, have those intangibles you got over there on the right. On the other hand, you might have a guy who's too high on himself, who is constantly thinking, what can I get out of this, or constantly thinking about. And I want to just emphasize how much the two guys, Davis Morgan's on the left and Caden Sipe is on the right. I think what they have done and what they've shown me is that you can have a blend of both of those things. You can have a tough guy and a guy that you can say, hey, we need you to go win us a playoff game, and we need you to rush 15, 20 times in a game. But also, when he comes out of the game and you got subs in there that are playing there at the end of the game, that he's the same guy who's encouraging him, he's coaching them up. It's tough to have both, and I've been blessed to have those two guys that have done an unbelievable job with all of those attributes and trying to blend the two of those together. We appreciate you kind of listening in on this time here, and we appreciate the Arkansas High School Football Coaches Association for asking us to do this, and hope you guys have a great spring, and hopefully COVID is gone and we have somewhat of a normal year this next year. But like Coach Smith said, if you guys need anything, you can contact us. We'd be more than willing to talk more about what we talked about today or anything else. We appreciate it.